Hello, today we're talking about urban sketching, known for its loose feel and imperfect charm. I live in the Pacific Northwest and it's cold here in January, so I will not be sketching outdoors. Instead, I'm cheating a little and using an image from Canva for reference, just to get me started. If you're new here, my name is Jamie, and I love trying different art styles and mediums and then sharing what I learn. So, without further ado, let's get into the 3 mistakes I made when first starting out with urban sketching and the solutions I'm working to implement in order to improve. And we'll get back to this scene later. Number 1, let's talk about lines. So, when drawing something from nature, like a tree stump or leaves, we know the lines will be rough in some areas, curved in others, and we aren't expecting to see perfectly straight lines or edges. But when it comes to man-made objects like buildings, signs, street lamp poles, we're used to seeing a lot of clean, sharp edges. And this can contradict the loose, free style of urban sketching. So, what do we do about that? Well, I personally don't think the solution is to try to mimic these straight lines, like the house that you see here on the left. Instead, try for intentionally imperfect lines with a loose grip and fast motions. Allow jerks and bumps and let your pen skip. It's difficult at first. It's going to take some practice before this strange way of drawing comes naturally. And I would recommend trying out some continuous line sketches. So not only is this a lot of fun, but it forces you to retrace your pathways and to come up with creative ways to get from one point to the next. And don't worry at all about the outcome. You can see with this window here, I went a little nuts. But it's actually kind of cool just to see what you can do without even lifting up your pen. Number 2, composition. I'm not just referring to the overall layout of your sketch, which of course is always important, but specifically I want to mention proportions and angles. And I'm just going to sketch this quick little church here. And in a second here, I'll be adding a potted plant as well as a little person out front. You can already start to see that my proportions are off, and this person would basically have to duck to get through the door. And again, we're not going for perfection by any means, but do be at least vaguely aware of your proportions. Now let's look at the importance of at least somewhat accurate angles. On the left, the house looks fairly normal, but on the right, the angles are off and it looks like someone stomped on this house. Just because I'm going for a carefree look, that does not mean I'm okay with old Smushy over here. So, what can we do? Well, I'm suggesting that we pay closer attention to the negative space in our reference images. If I'm taking even a few seconds to study the negative space around the object I'm drawing, I'm more likely to wind up with angles that aren't way off and proportions that I'm actually happy with. Let's check back in on that project from the beginning. Can you see where I made the mistakes with my lines, my angles, and my proportions? Yep, I see it too. We'll move on to mistake number 3 for now, but then we'll revisit this drawing and we'll see what I could have done differently. Number 3, too busy and overworked. Once again, let's begin with that most basic house shape. I've added bricks to the chimney and these reflective lines so everyone knows this is a window. And I'm going to add some detail to the door so that we know it's made out of wood. Oh, and of course, let's add some shingles on the roof. I wouldn't want anyone to think the roofer forgot one. And let's add some grass out front. We'll plant a lush, thick lawn. I must include every blade of grass. Okay, what if we try again? But this time, let's keep it much more simple. I'm only going to be adding the hint of the bricks. Only a suggestion of singles. Singles? Shingles. So, will the viewer become confused about the subject? No, of course not. It's still a house and there's grass in the front yard. Simple as that. But this time around, it took much less effort. I know that I'm guilty of this quite often with my art, trying to pack it full of details that aren't always necessary. Less is sometimes more. This is especially true with urban sketching. I have a theory on this. I think as newer artists, we often try to overcompensate from either a lack of skill or a lack of confidence. We think that by adding these tiny little details, it will look like we know what we're doing. But let's be honest, we have to put in the work, show up, and keep practicing. Details can certainly add to a piece, but hiding behind too many details is not likely the solution. And as I finish up here, let's take one last look at my mistakes. So my eyes immediately go to the house second from the right. The angle on that roof is really bothering me, and I can tell that it should be a little less harsh, and it throws off the shingles below as well. And the proportions of the doors look off, especially because of how they're partially hidden behind the hill. And I can also see how I could have done with far less detail in certain areas. Well, now that I have a better handle on what to work on and what to avoid, I'm excited to see how my next attempt at urban sketching goes. Thank you for watching.